Hey guys, good morning. What is up? So, it's been a busy week. Been a lot going on. I'd mentioned before that I kind of have a new job now, and it's an amazing job. I don't talk about it too much because, you know, there are weirdos on the internet. But please just know that the job that I have helps people who come from, you know, diverse backgrounds, including those who have come from poverty, to help them be successful in STEM careers and STEM academia. So that's kind of my job centers around a lot of that, helping people be successful in STEM academia and that sort of thing, as well as careers. Particularly those who are marginalized and have a poverty-based background, giving them a chance to go from poverty to prosperity. So I'm very proud of what I do, and I'm excited. I used to teach high school. So if you're kind of new to this, I used to be a high school science teacher. I can teach chemistry, biology, and physical science. I can also teach university, because I have a master's in chemistry. I also have a master's in teaching that's specialized in science education. So science education and science communication is particularly important to me. I've taught all ages of people. I actually used to be a preschool teacher. So from little ones to grown-ups, I have taught science to. So today, I hadn't had like a super heavy planned show with my slides that I normally do, because normally I have like a huge slideshow thing, and then I'm getting messages on Twitter from Bull going, "Where are your slides, Mel? Where are your slides, Mel? The show is like in 10 minutes." I've gotten better, Bull. I think I've gotten better with the slides, getting them to you like at least 20 minutes before show.
Yeah, it's fine. I just, you're different than the way things used with other people. Like everybody does it a little bit differently. And if you want to, if as long as you like get it to me in time to actually put it up, it's fine.
It's fine. See? So Bull helps me out a lot here. So he joined the group, joined the team. He also works with the Geek Room. So Bull runs my shows now for me, which is awesome. So, so we're talking about kindness. We're talking about giving back to the community. Bull was kind enough to hop aboard, and I pay him for doing this because my patrons are amazing. Patreon.com/ScientistMel. And that's my Patreon. So the money, a lot of times from that, I kind of give back to different people who do different things. And 2 years ago, I think it was almost 2 years ago, I started my Patreon. It started right around $25 to $40 a month. And the second month, I think it was the second or third month that I had my Patreon active, I ran a 5K for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and donated all of a month's worth of pledges to St. Jude. Now, what I've tried to do continuously, I have a portion of my shop where proceeds are donated to different organizations, including the Trevor Project, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, Planned Parenthood, the ACLU. They are currently working with, on immigration rights and trying to help people stay in the country where they were born here and keeping families together. So that's kind of important to me. But I do in the World Wildlife Foundation, that's another organization. So I kind of take bad behavior on social media and I put it on merchandise, and then I donate those portions or those proceeds, all of it outside of the cost of making the thing, that all goes to charity, and then I donate that. So I have been still contributing to that. But for me, what's really important is that we kind of recognize the fact that a lot of these organizations do have really good backers. A lot of millionaires, a lot of billionaires even they still have fundraising for that, which is cool. But there are people within the community that are struggling with medical bills, with not being employed, being unemployed, being disabled, not being able to make enough money for things. And so I'm not always vocal about it on my Twitter because not everybody wants their business public, but I still help those people, often privately. But I don't broadcast that. There's somebody who runs, for instance, my Facebook page, somebody who is like a brother from another mother to me. I've known him forever. He's disabled. He's unemployed. He will not take money from me, but his TV broke down once and I got him a new TV. But he takes care of a lot of the stuff that I need on my Facebook page. He double checks that. He goes through and tries to help out on my Twitter when people ask me questions and things like that. And the more I expand, the stronger his role will get. And then he will feel like, okay, you can pay me for this. But he doesn't want me to pay him. But things like that, I give back. When I see a GoFundMe, I try to contribute to that when I can, because that helps people directly, and it helps people who are struggling, because we don't, I grew up I grew up practically in poverty, single parent home. I have, I had to get loans out a lot for my education, even though some of it was covered by grants. Grant money is not enough to pay for things. So I owe more than my house, and I'm never going to pay off these loans, and I get that. But one of the things that I pledged to do when I started science communication work was to give back to organizations, charities, that sort of thing. So I'm giving back to organizations. So what I want to do, because I've seen a lot of just really awfulness on the internet lately, and it's made me very sad. It has. I'm not going to lie. It makes me very, very sad when I see people just being outright horrible to each other. Because I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand how people can just be so mean to one another. And it's not just the outright meanness, it's the profiting. And it doesn't have to be monetary type of profiting, but the profiting from the suffering of others, people who are going through things. It just, to me, it's just disgusting, and it's upsetting. And so I'm kind of taking a break a bit from, I'm taking a break a bit from social media, because I like to be a positive voice. I like to be a person, the world sucks sometimes, but hey, here's a picture of some kittens. Kittens are great. Here's a science fact associated with kittens. Here's a science fact associated with, bonobos, or here's a cute picture of a baby chimp. Aren't they adorable? Because sometimes you need a break from all of that. So rather than focus on all this negativity that I've been seeing, one of my role models is Mr. Rogers in The Hulk Just Fell. He's had it with me already. He's like, Hulk is tired. One of my role models is Mr. Rogers, and I talk about him a lot because that is the person, some people say, what would Jesus do? Or what would this person do over here? I say, what would Mr. Rogers do? So I remember often a lot of the things he says. And actually, I think I have his book right around here. I need to pull it up. Oh, here it is. Here's Mr. Rogers' book. I told you guys I'm a fan. I've got Mr. Rogers' book right here. And if you don't have this, you should totally check it out. The World According to Mr. Rogers. It's a lot of his philosophies on different things. Not very thick. You can read it pretty quickly. But one thing that he strived to do with his work, and right before he retired, one thing that he strived to do, he wanted to cover every single topic that a child would ever encounter growing up. That was his goal, was I want to cover every topic that a child would go through or encounter. And when 9/11 happened, or the terrorism and stuff like that, and things of these natures, things that children are exposed to, he wanted to kind of address that. And right now we're in a pretty scary world. People are being horrible to each other. We see it on the news all the time. Nobody really reports all the good things that are happening. But something that Mr. Rogers said when he was scared, or he would see something that was scary, particularly because he grew up around like lots of wartime. Look for the helpers. The helpers are what give us hope. So it's like the helpers are what give us hope, essentially. And so I don't want to just look for the helpers. I want to be a helper. And I think it's important to kind of set an example and say, all right, I'm going to be a helper. Yeah, I get a lot of vitriol thrown at me. I've been called all kinds of things. And it's weird to me, with the stuff that I've been called, it hasn't affected me nearly as much as how I see other people treating each other. And I'm like, this is so horrible. I mean, throw your vitriol at me. That's fine. I've been through 1,000 times worse. I really feel like I have been through hell and back. in so many aspects of my life that somebody saying something, oh, well, you're a professional victim. Okay. I've been called that. I've been called a Monsanto shill by a science journalist, which I thought was funny. I've been called a sex worker, which I'm not very good at it because I've never been paid for that, because I'm not. So, I've been called that. I've been called every single profanity. And that's, I just mute, block, whatever, report harassment, move on. I mean, that's what I do. But when I see other people profiting, then, like I said, doesn't have to be monetary profiting off of it, of other people suffering, it deeply bothers me, because I'm like, you don't know what that person's going through. So when somebody has a mental illness or something like that, kindness, the smallest bit of kindness is extremely important. Just the smallest, teeniest little bit of kindness. It doesn't have to be much. It can be like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I saw you were going through a thing. You don't know me so well. I'm thinking of you, and I hope things improve soon. You don't have to say it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be better. You can just say, hey, I hope things improve soon. So, but that's kind of part of this, of what I do is, yes, I want to be a science educator. I want to be a science communicator. But we also need to understand that education and circumstances go hand in hand. And I've talked about this on other streams where people equate ability and IQ with race. Completely wrong. That's not how it works. But education and poverty, poverty is a thing that affects a person's education. The ability to get to work. You can't get to work if you don't have a car in the US. There are very, very few places in the United States where you can just hop on a train and get to work without a car. Most people don't live within walking distance of their work, and they can't necessarily afford to buy a house either. Particularly, you have to have, some people have to have a down payment. Poverty is a real thing. So me as a science educator and a communicator, it's kind of stupid for me to sit here and say, okay, I want you to learn science, when I know that somebody couldn't eat breakfast this morning, or, couldn't eat lunch. Even as an educator, when I was teaching in high school, one test, when I was teaching biology, one test was worth 50% of my evaluation as a teacher. One test, kids walking in taking one test. I had a kid get in a car wreck on the day of the test. Am I supposed to go in there and say, really smart kid, and if they didn't get all of them right, it was going to dock my score? Because the smart kids, if they don't at least meet expectations, it docks you harder than a kid who fails and keeps on failing. Believe it or not, the smart kids are the ones that destroy your credibility as a teacher, according to this one test. So am I to go into this room and say, I know you got in a car wreck and totaled your car. Your parents probably don't even know yet, really. Do good on this test. Having been there, knowing that one of my students was beaten every night by their grandfather, and there's nothing I can do about that, but sit there and try to be, I'm here for you. It's important for me as a science educator to recognize people can't learn if they can't even eat, if they've got emotional things going on, if they're trying to cope with stuff. So yeah, I talk about things that are hard sometimes. And I do try to give back when I can. That's why all of my resources on my website are free for teachers. That's why I make these videos. So maybe, if they can't get through to the kids there, or the grown-ups or adults, like Oral Audacity is a grown-up show, I make all of that accessible for everyone. But I also try, when I can, to monetarily help somebody's life a little bit better. And if I can't do that, I at least try to be positive and say, hey, I see you're going through some stuff. I am so sorry. I'm thinking about you. My DMs are open on Twitter, and people will hop in there and they will just spill their guts, and it stays there. I'm like, and they're like, I just needed a place to say all these things. And I'm like, that's okay. It's right there. So I try to do what I can, but and I get I oftentimes I feel like freaking Wonder Woman in the scene from No Man's Land where she's taking all the fire so the guys can get through. And they're like, well, we can't save everybody. This isn't what we're here to do. She goes, well, it's not what you're here to do. This is what I'm here to do. And she goes through and she does the things that other people said that couldn't be done. And she goes and she gets her shield out and she's like, I'm going to take all this fire so other people can be successful. And sometimes that's people yelling at me about things because they've had a bad day. Sometimes I'm a crying towel. Sometimes they need somebody to yell at to feel better about themselves. Sometimes they need to just slide into my DMs and just vent and say, this isn't about you. I just need some place to just say all of these things. And I go, okay. And sometimes I can give $100 to somebody's GoFundMe and say, I know you got a long way to go, but hopefully this will chip off some of that. And, so for me, kindness is extremely important. People do kind things for me all the time. And they do. I mean, they do. I rely heavily on the kindness of strangers and the kindness of others. And people do kind things for me all the time. So I try to highlight a lot of that on my social media and in my videos and say, look at this wonderful human being. This is a person. So I ignore a lot of the vitriol that I get. I ignore a lot of the denigration, the awful things people say. I don't even address it in videos because it's not worth talking about. So I'm trying to shift focus and say, kindness is important. One small random act of kindness can completely change the tone of somebody's day. It can, and it has for me. It has for me. I have had days where I was like, gosh, I just cannot take another step. And then somebody will send me a message and say, hey, I saw this really funny joke and it made me think about you and the ridiculous science dad jokes that you have. But I thought you might like this. And they send it to me. And I'm like, wow, somebody saw something that made them smile and they thought of me. That in itself is a random act of kindness. So it's just, so when I'm sitting here and I'm seeing all of this awfulness that's happening, awfulness from people that I would have considered friends, and I'm like, I don't know how to navigate that. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I can't jump in there because, I don't know everything that's going on. I don't know if they're just having a bad day. I don't know if they really believe this or not. So I just sit back and I watch and I go, okay, maybe let's just give people the benefit of the doubt, until we see something is, absolutely destroying a person. And then we see this happen that is absolutely destroying a person. And then we don't even give them the benefit of the doubt that this is actually real and they're hurting. I've had people say I was lying about my experiences where I've been victimized, physically assaulted or harassed and stalked. I've had people say that that didn't happen, even though there are people who actually watched it happen unfold on social media, no less. And to me, to be denied your experiences is its own awfulness. And that's not kind. That's not kind. And even if you think they're lying, if you don't have evidence of that, why say it? if you don't have evidence that somebody's lying about their pain, why say that to them? That's more harmful than beneficial. Stuff always comes out in the wash. It always does. It always does. Why not default to kindness? I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I don't make drama llama videos. I don't address the awful things people say. I don't say, so-and-so said this. Here's the series of tweets where they call me a sex worker, or here's the series of tweets. Now, sometimes if it's on Twitter and active, I'll say, please don't say this to people. This isn't very nice, and this is why. That's a teachable moment. Okay, look, just a reminder, I'm not looking for romance on my Twitter. Don't be sliding into my DMs offering me sugar daddy proposals, because that's a thing that happens. So I've had lots of conversations recently with people about how do we navigate how it is we engage with each other online, because it's different than in person. So people hide behind anonymity often. And this gives them instant courage, and they think that manners and kindness can be just tossed out the window when they're hiding behind an avatar, that this somehow means that we no longer are required to be kind to each other or to engage in respectful conversations. This is upsetting to me because, and I'll be honest, I've been wrong in the past on perspectives, particularly when I used to be a heavy fundamentalist when it came to religion, and my perspectives were completely wrong because that's what I had been taught. But when I was actively looking to learn about people who were not like myself, and I was asking people who are not like myself for information about who they are, what they do, whether it be a different culture or a different gender or a different sexuality, whatever it was. If I had somebody immediately coming up to me, yelling at me because I had ill-formed perceptions that were based on what I had been taught as fact, I would have thought every person was like that in that particular group, because I was closed-minded. I was never 100% closed-minded. I always wanted to learn. But if I had people coming at me in that way, that called me all kinds of names that I certainly did not identify with, that I was genuinely trying to learn and grow, I would have completely shut down. I was fortunate to have people in my life who understood that I had no clue what I was talking about. That, they're like, ScientistMel, you're so clever. You know stuff. I'm like, how do you think I got there? I listened to people. I listened to what they had to say. I read books. I looked up stuff. I did the research. But that took time. If the people I went to were automatically throwing stuff at me and yelling at me and hollering at me and calling me all kinds of names for having a perspective that I was raised with and taught for decades, we'll say about maybe 19 years or something, 19, 20 years or so. Okay. If I had that, I would have shut down. I would have still probably gone and got my answers somewhere else, but that would have made it far more difficult for me to be empathetic or even sympathetic to a person different from myself. So that's why I say, even if somebody disagrees with you, even if they have an entirely problematic view of the world, problematic, completely wrong, dead wrong, the moment that you're abusive in language, the conversation ends and they will never want to talk to you again. This is why I don't engage in conversations where people are abusive. Because if they're being abusive to me, number one, they're not really interested in listening to me. They're really not. they're not interested in hearing what I have to say. 2, they likely don't care what I have to say. 3, they just want to fight. So I don't fight people on the internet. And likewise, if I were that way to people, if I were verbally abusive and called people all kinds of horrible names when they were active, now let's keep in mind, they're actively looking for answers to talk to me. And I automatically started jumping on them and yelling at them, calling them stupid. An example, I have in the past spent over an hour with somebody teaching them about exponential math. If they come in and I'd be like, how do you not know that powers of 10, you move a decimal? If I immediately started denigrating their lack of education when it came to moving a decimal in the metric system or how to count significant figures, just say, well, these are just the rules. That's just what it is. How could you not know that? They would never come to me again for help. And that's not my goal. My goal is to be a place where people can come and say, let me ask her. She's not going to get upset with me for asking a question. She's not going to call me ugly names for asking a question. But the moment the conversation turns rude or abusive, I leave, because why would I stay and talk to somebody who's being rude? So for me, when you're trying to get people to see your perspective and try to understand, it's important to default to kindness and understand their life experience is vastly different from yours. So if we're looking at somebody, I on my audio podcast, I spoke with Mississippian. She is a person who is a therapist out of DC. She works with trauma related to marginalized groups, including trans women of color, which, if they're disabled even, her statistics are disabled trans women of color are the most marginalized groups in the US and are at the highest risk for suicide. There's racism trauma. There's trauma associated with racism. You don't know a person's life or what they're going through. So if you just default to kindness and give people the benefit of the doubt, don't assume every motive is nefarious. It's not always like that. So I'm kind of like on a soapbox right now. Let me take a breather and catch up on the chat, because I know you guys have been saying stuff, and this is supposed to be interactive. So I'm going to take a breather and just kind of reiterate, if you just joined, my goal is not only to be just a science communicator and an educator, but also somebody who can recognize that people have their own individual struggles. And if I can help out with that, that also helps with learning about the science, because how can I expect somebody to learn about this content if they aren't able to even get something to eat, So that's kind of where I go with that. So let me catch up. So catching up on the chat. Hey, Nate Brody and Nether, Tad of Philosophies with us. Bull is producing, so he's also talking in the chat. Let's see, Christopher on Facebook, what's up? Yeah, we should talk soon. Christopher's an IRL friend. He lives in my town. We should hang, dude. We got lots to catch up on. Tom Hanks is playing Mr. Rogers. I'm not ready to watch that show yet. Oh my gosh. Hey, Rhetoric and Discourse patron there. Doc Fearsome, another patron. Thank you. Tad of Philosophy is also a patron. So I'm not ready to watch that film, guys. I didn't even watch the documentary. I can't get through a single episode of Mr. Rogers without crying. So I don't know if I have the strength to get through the documentary or the actual film with Tom Hanks. I don't think I can do it. That'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can. I'll have to sit at home and spend an entire day prepping for it, then watch it, and then spend like at least 2 more days recuperating from the experience. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers too. Let's see, Twitter needs a feature that gives small shocks to people if they type creepy stuff. Nether, yeah, it'd be like Pavlovian, wouldn't it? I wonder if, but see if there are people, not to shame anybody, but there are people who enjoy that sort of thing. So they might just be typing creepy stuff all day to people, and it's a reward for them. That's the thing that exists. Hey, Mrs. Snarky. How are y'all doing? Yeah, it's important that, intersectionality is important for people to understand. And that's something that's a new term for a lot of people. They don't quite understand. Oh, thank you so much, Golden Coin, for subbing to the channel. Yay. Hey, Quartermaster QQ, what's up? You cried your little heart out through the documentary. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know, Doc Pearson. I don't think I can sit through it. So let's see. Let's look in and see what Mr. Rogers has to say about a few things. Because, he always said, look for the helpers. So when the world's looking really, really upset and you're getting sad because of how awful things are, look for the helpers. But I don't just want to look for the helpers. I want to be a helper. So we need more helpers. And that's kind of what this particular stream is about. So if anybody donates super chats or anything like that for this stream, I'm going to pay it forward because, I mentioned before, I did crowdfund my computer. I absolutely crowdfunded my computer, but I also built it. I went with the lowest cost possible. CAD philosophy, spent 2 days helping this girl via video put this thing together. He has a lot of patience because there was lots of colorful language going on trying to get that thing put together. But one of the things from Jacob, who was who was the biggest contributor to the purchase of this computer that I'm on now, that I'm now able to make like better content with, including short films, which I'm playing around with. You're going to see another little short film on Sunday on Audacity on that particular show. One of the things Jacob he was like, I want you to help somebody else out. And I kind of already do that, but I'm like, nope, I'm gonna do it a bit more. So I've donated to Ansgar's GoFundMe. I did that this morning as part of that promise to Jacob. I did that this morning. I donated to Doc Fearsome's that I mentioned a few weeks ago to his car fund. There are a few other people that I'm going to try to help out, including my brother from another mother who needs a new pair of glasses, who runs all of my Facebook page stuff, also offers a lot of support and helps me out a lot with some of the stuff that I do on social media. He never asks for money, ever. He just wants to do it for free. He's disabled and unemployed. So I'm going to buy him a new pair of glasses. So, I've sent him a TV in the past because, that was since he's unemployed. He also has depression, but he's also open about that too. And so that's one of those things I feel that's part of his self-care that's important for him because I care about him. He's my brother from another mother. I want him around, So I'm like, let me help you. This is part of your mental health fund, let me help you with that. So it's like, so yes. Thanks, Bull. Love your face. I didn't break my motherboard. No, I didn't, Hatted. So, I didn't break my motherboard. All right, so let's see. Let's go to We Are All Neighbors. We're going to read a little bit from Mr. Rogers today. Let's see what he says about all of us being neighbors. We are all neighbors. All right. It's no secret that I like to get to know people, and not just the outside stuff of their lives. I like to try to understand the meaning of who people are and what they're saying to me. So for me, as a science communicator and science educator, I can't educate people if I don't know how they learn. And I can't educate people if they're going through something that's affecting them in their learning. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. So we're kind of all neighbors. So when we get to know each other and we're going through and I'm doing these things and other people are doing these things, like, I like your videos, you know, that's why my DMs are open. They can just do an emotional dump right in there. Boy, that sounds bad, doesn't it? Sometimes we associate that term with something that's not pleasant. But if you need to just unload your brain and your feelings in my DMs on Twitter, that's always there for you. And I don't share that with anybody. So here we go. Here we go. What else does Mr. Rogers say? As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or will ever have. Something inside that is unique to all time. It's our job to encourage each other to discover that uniqueness and to provide ways of developing this expression. Open discussion and allowing a space for people to freely ask questions in a respectful manner. I have to say, in a respectful manner is extremely important. Gosh, there's so much here. The older I get, the more I seem to be able to appreciate my neighbor. That's whomever I happen to be with at the moment. Oh, sure, I've always tried to love my neighbor as myself. However, the more experiences I've had, the more chances I've had to see the uniqueness of each person, as well as each tree and plant and shell and cloud, the more I find myself delighting every day in these lavish gifts. So I've come to believe it's the greatest appreciator of all. So being able to appreciate all of these things. Wow, all of these are cool. When you combine your own intuition with a sensitivity to other people's feelings and moods, you may be close to the origins of valuable human attributes such as generosity, altruism, compassion, sympathy, and empathy. So trying to combine your intuition to being sensitive with other people, it's extremely important. So what I'm trying to do is be more of a helper. Look to the helpers, look for the helpers, but be a helper too. And if you can't be a helper, that's okay. Just don't do any more harm, you know, just sometimes being quiet and not speaking and just listening is a way to be a helper. Even if you're upset or you're angry at somebody, sometimes it's better just to roll it off your back, let it roll off your back, and understand that maybe that person who's lashing out and being mean or being ugly, maybe they've had a really hard life and they shouldn't be mean or ugly. That's not okay. But maybe try to understand, okay, this behavior is not all right. That's not cool. But perhaps they have been terribly, terribly hurt. They probably need some help. So always preempt whatever you say with a little bit of some kind of understanding that everybody has their own garbage they go through. You know, we do. We all have our own garbage we go through. And we've all had things happen to us in different levels, different extremes, and they've affected us differently. But defaulting to kindness, if you choose to be kind first, always be kind, you're not going to intentionally cause any harm. And you're likely to make some better choices and decisions in how you engage with other people. And I think, particularly when you're dealing with people on the internet, we forget that there's a person behind that screen, behind that tweet, behind that Facebook post. There's a person behind that video. Even though you see me right now, they're like, well, she's a scientist. She's a science communicator. She deals with stuff all the time and this and this. I still have feelings. I'm open about my anxiety that I have. I have crippling anxiety sometimes to the point I can't even form sentences. Now, it's not often, and I have it well managed, but it still can happen. I'm not infallible. I can be wrong, and I have been wrong, and I've apologized for being wrong, and even tried to pay it forward to make amends for the wrongness that I've had in the past. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not have the right answer. It's okay to absolutely be wrong in something that you've done. But it's also important, if you've hurt somebody when you're wrong, to try to make amends about that. Not only just say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, but let me try to do something good out of the wrongness that I was, which is kind of what I try to do, particularly when I'm wrong. So I'm going to catch up on the chat here. Oh my goodness. Just try to be kind. God, it just upsets me so much when I see all of this ugliness between people. Love your face. Well, Tatted Philosophy loves your face, Bull. I don't know. Do you have a response for that? Love your face. Maybe he wants to give you a hug. Tatted Philosophy, are you wanting to hug Bull? I would hug Bull. I would hug a lot of people. So Bull has no comment, I guess. It is hard to learn new things when you are clouded by anxiety. That's correct. It is very hard to learn new things. And anxiety can also lies to you. You can't possibly learn string theory. Not at all. Why do you think it took me so long to cover it? I'm like, string theory. I have the fear. It's just, but I did it. I reached a point, I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable enough to cover string theory a little bit. Don't know everything about it. No way I will ever know everything about it, but I know a lot more than I did. But yes, it's hard to learn when you have anxiety. Mr. Rogers is an awesomely sweet person. Let's see, like appreciating the fact stars gave up their lives in a supernova so I could exist. That's right, Bull. You are made of star stuff. Kind of makes me sad I never got to see Mr. Rogers when I was a child. I got made fun of when I was in grade school for still watching Mr. Rogers, so I had to be quiet about it because that's a kid's show. But honestly, you go back and watch it as an adult, you realize the profound effect that he had. And there are people to this day who study his method of education and make it part of their thesis. People write their PhD thesis on this stuff. We do tend to forget we're dealing with another person who also has feelings. And feelings are important. I love that. Like, yes, Wonder Woman. She's my girl. So, it's hard. It's hard to learn when you've got stuff going on. So for the people, who, adults can totally learn from Mr. Rogers. So for the people who want to initiate change in the world, which, a lot of us do. A lot of us are not happy with the current state of things. And it's causing a lot of sadness and anger. And people are lashing out in all kinds of ways. And it's all right to have those feelings. But how do you initiate change? The first thing that I would consider when we're talking about trying to make the world better, be kinder to each other, is what is your goal? What is your goal in making that video that you're making? What is your goal in writing that article? What is your goal in engaging in those series of tweets in that particular conversation? You have to ask yourself, what is your goal? What do you expect to happen? What would you like to happen? So I often have people who try to bait me, B-A-I-T, into a fight on social media. I don't want to fight people. I'm getting old. And my patience for fighting on the internet is small. It's kind of like this little Captain America meme that goes around like fighting on the internet. I could do that all day. And here he is with like his shield, and it's like, and then we jump forward. Spoilers, old Captain America in the latest film is like, yeah, I don't think I will. I don't think I will. And so you have to ask yourself, what is your goal? What do you hope to accomplish by having that particular discussion? What is the best course of action? You know, when you're engaging with another person. If having taught young Earth creationists even in a public school setting, and even adults about evolution, they have the completely wrong information because they've been given the wrong information. But I was that person too. I was that person too. So my goal in talking with somebody who has vastly different views than I do, number one, I'm not going to change their mind right now. And I don't have to. And that's okay. I want them to be able to be comfortable enough to come back to me and say, hey, she had good information. She didn't want to fight with me. She didn't want to argue about this. She didn't call me stupid for believing this. She was respectful. And clearly, all she wanted to do was make certain that I had the correct information about it. That's what I do. I'm not going to force somebody to think how I think. I'm not going to make them think how I think. But I want to make certain they have the correct information and that they feel comfortable enough to come back to me and have a discussion about it if they want to. This is why I don't fight. This is why I don't get in arguments. I don't want to spend a long discussion on something that's not what I consider to be a fruitful discussion. I don't want to argue about a thing I saw on a picture on the internet or something. I don't want to argue about that. I'm like, there's so many other things that we can focus on, and I don't want to fight. I'm just like, okay, well, this is my perspective, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to disagree with it. You can do whatever you want with it, and that's completely okay. But I've just, my patience, I still have a lot of patience. I'm just weary. I guess the correct word is weary. I'm weary because I've been doing this for a couple years now. I've only been like heavy active on YouTube over the past year and a half, maybe. And I've been doing this a couple years now, at least on the science communicator front. And I'm just weary because it feels like no matter what I do, there's still going to be awful people. And that's something that I have to learn to deal with better. And if they're awful to me, that's funny. If they're awful to me, it doesn't hurt me near as bad as when I see it happening among people, when they're awful to each other. And I can clearly see the pain on both sides, and they're just screaming at each other. And I'm like, boy, this is horrible. They're both hurting. And I pick that up because I have a lot of empathy. So I tend to take on a lot of feelings of the things that I see. So it's harder for me to see that and see people being horrible to each other than it is for somebody to be awful to me, because I can just like, okay, I'll deal with this and just, move on. But to see people doing it to each other affects me way worse than somebody making a video about how they think I'm a horrible person. I'm like, okay. I hope you feel better now. So maybe this was therapeutic for you, and that's now you feel better. Fantastic. I can compartmentalize that and rationalize that. They're going through something, and I need to be their crying towel right now, and that's going to make them feel better. I can rationalize that. But seeing people do it to each other hurts me a bit. And I'm not saying it hurts me like they're doing it to hurt me. And I'm not saying that I'm a victim in that situation, but it upsets me to see, because I see two people hurting and they're lashing out at each other, or groups of people hurting and they're lashing out at each other. And I'm like, they just, I don't know how to help them. And so I'm just like, they cannot engage in civil discourse. So this person's hurting a lot. I know this person's hurting a lot for completely different reasons, but they're being awful to each other. And that's just terrible to see. Which is also why I don't watch horror movies or sad movies, because I can't cope with it. And probably why I can't watch Mr. Rogers, at least the film, because I love him too much and he's not on the planet now and I wish he was. But it's just like, oh my goodness, yes. So yes, I wanted to talk this entire time about kindness and why it's important, because it's just, because I've just seen too much ugly. I've just seen too much ugly on the internet in various groups. And I talk to people in all kinds of different circles. And there just seems to be a whole lot of not nice and ugly and meanness that's flying around, to the point I'm just like, no more. No more. So it's like, I'm no more. So I don't highlight it. I don't talk about it. I just want to be a helper. I want to be one of the helpers that people can see and go, there's a helper, I feel better. Because that's what makes me feel better. And Mr. Rogers was right about that. When you feel sad and you're upset about the world, look for the helpers. And you can be a helper. Just say, hey, I notice you're having a bad day. I like you. And I think, you're a pretty great person. You may not know me so often, but just know I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you. That's all. I think you're great, and I'm thinking about you. So that's kind of what I kind of want to do. So if you are distraught and you're upset with the world, much like myself over the past few days, look for the helpers. And if that's not enough, then be a helper. And if you can't be a helper, try not to add to the sadness. Try not to add to the pot of awful. Try to just say, okay, this is awful. So that's going to stay awful. And it's probably going to be awful for a while. So if you can't be a helper, try not to add to the pot of awful, at least. So, Doctor Who example, Vincent van Gogh or Vincent van Gogh episode. Life is a pile of things. You have things in a good pile and you have things in a bad pile. Okay? And sometimes the good things don't outweigh the bad things, but the bad things don't necessarily make the good things any less important. So which pile are you giving to? Are you giving to the good pile in somebody's life? Or are you giving to the bad pile? Because I tell you, Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So, catching up on the chat one more time. I feel the way about Terry Pratchett that Mel describes Mr. Rogers. You don't really realize how profound it influences you at the time. True, Nether. I think most folks are kids in adult suits. We're all winging it, Snarky. I've never been this age before. And I don't think my mother has ever had a child this age before either, because I'm the eldest. So we're all winging it. And once you get into like super grown up land and you got a mortgage and stuff and you got bills, you're like, and then you go to your job and then you have your boss and your boss is like, I have no idea what's going on. And you're like, wow, I had a job. My job isn't like that now. So I want to be clear. My boss is awesome, but I've been in jobs before, but still, even then, the best boss has never been a boss in that situation with me as a new employee, right? So it's like I'm a completely different person. So anytime you bring in somebody new, it's like that is the first time they've ever been that boss of that person. So we're still all kind of winging it. No, it's not helpful to lash out. Coping strategies are helpful, but they're difficult. And sometimes we may be lashing out and it looks like that on the outside, and we may not even realize we're doing it. That's why it's really important to kind of take a step back before we send that tweet or before we engage in a discussion. What is the goal? What are you trying to do here? And then check. Okay. You know, it's almost like before you say something, is it kind? First, is it kind? Okay. 2, is it true? 3, will it help the person to hear it? Okay. And 4, what happen? What do you expect to happen? Is this going to hurt the person or help the person to hear it? So kind of think of it that way. The dress was blue and black. Man, yes, it was. You know, it kind of is like both, wasn't it? Other stuff does hurt. Yeah. What's up, Geek Room? It is important to not get involved in something if you can't cope. You've got to take care of yourself. Well, thank you, Geek Room. I think you're awesome too. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes I get particularly spirited on your show, depending on who's there. But I don't ever think it's mean. You know, I don't think I'm ever mean on your show. But sometimes there are mean people who pop up and they just need to be reminded to be nicer. So thank you, Nether. I hope I make the world a better place. It's hard sometimes. Yeah, when you're a kid, you think adults have it all together, man. The cake is a lie, isn't it? The cake is a lie. Oh my goodness. Hello, Jens. Yeah, we're all winging it. We're winging it. We're winging it every single time, guys. Good old Carol for an uprising. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But that was interesting. The cake is a lie. They tell you that there's cake. You can have cake as an adult, and you can eat cake every single day. But then you have all of the other health issues that are associated with eating cake for every meal every single day as an adult. You can't even enjoy the higher metabolism that you had when you were a kid. You know, that just goes away. And you're like, I can't even eat the foods that I was promised I could eat as an adult once you become an adult. The cake is a lie. It's all a lie, guys. Which is why we need to be kind to each other. You know, kindness is free. And if you can't be kind, then at least be silent. You know, if you can't be kind and if you can't contribute to the good pile, then just step back and be silent, man. It's not that hard. Oh my goodness, it's not that hard. So let's do a little bit of admin, okay, about upcoming shows. It's an exciting time for the Audacity show, guys. Guess who's going to be on tomorrow? Jeff Holiday. Now, Audacity is a comedy show. We absolutely make fun of really bad science, but we also make fun of people who intentionally cause harm to others in the form of predatory practices. So when I say be kind to people, if David Avocado Wolf was actually on my show, I would never be disrespectful to his face like that. I make fun of his ideas. I make fun of what he sells. And to a degree, I do criticize his behavior because a lot of times it's really creepy. He's irresponsible and he is contributing to harming a lot of people and he makes money off of that. For me, that's a different level of person. That's a person who spends their entire career harming people and selling snake oil. Same thing with Deepak Chopra. We will absolutely make fun of his science because it's not real. None of that is real. We will discuss how, like for coming up on Sunday, we will be talking about anti-vaxxers. Doc Savage has worked in vaccines. He has seen and knows all of the things associated with vaccines. People have been very cruel to him and called him all kinds of horrible things for what he does when it literally saves lives. And he takes offense to that, and rightly so. Doc is not kind to the anti-vaxxer movement, but he shouldn't be, because a lot of those individuals are contributing to the deaths of people who cannot be vaccinated. So, Audacity is meant to be a comedy show, but it's also meant to help people learn about the dangers associated with predatory people who make money off of hurting you. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever completely destroying the stuff those people sell. Just like John Edwards, what I feel is just, it's horrible. I just don't even have a word for what he does, where he's a grifter and he grifts on the grief of others. It's horrible to convince somebody that you're talking to their dead loved ones. To me, that's abusive. And if you're abusive, I'm going to do everything I can to expose you for who you are, and I'm going to make fun of the garbage that you push. So we're Audacity. We make fun of the garbage that people push. We expose the abusive individuals who sell snake oil. We do that, and also the nefariousness behind the anti-vaxxer movement. The people themselves may actually believe that this is happening, but they're still contributing to the deaths of others. And so we do what we can to bring about change in that way. Now, if I had an anti-vaxxer on my show, which I would never do, I would not allow any kind of hateful rhetoric or harmful discourse to happen between them and my audience, because we're respectful here for that, for people who are on my show. And so there's that. So I get that there may be some conflicting perspective in being kind to others, like I'm saying, in the show or Audacity. But to be fair, there are some things that are just plain freaking evil, and people who profit off of the pain and suffering of others, to me, are a special kind of evil and should absolutely be exposed and should have all of their stuff, kind of, ripped apart and completely made fun of. So, and yeah, you're right, Nether. There is a line. If one crosses that line, they don't get to be treated with respect. Yeah, so if we're having to bury babies because the babies that were too young to get measles vaccinations contract measles from an unvaccinated kid, yeah, I'm going to have an issue with that, because we have loss of life now for this. You can treat someone with respect, and you need to be the better person. Yes. Doc is a bit more snarky towards the actual people than I am. He says he's very sweary. I'm not so sweary on that show. He is very sweary. So it's almost like we got a good cop, bad cop routine, but he's really not a bad cop either. You know what I mean? He is right. He's very ragey. I know, snarky. Anti-vaxxers do need to be called out. So Sunday we're going to talk about anti-vaxxers. Tomorrow. So I will be writing the show today, and Jeff Holiday debunks bad science as well. And he's snarky too, which will be fun. So do tune in to Audacity. Jeff Holiday is awesome. He swears a lot. Doc swears a lot. And I'll be sitting there going, I'm not the sweary person here. I am sweary sometimes. You can ask Tatted Philosophy. When I was putting together the computer, he heard lots of colorful adjectives, you know, but I think there's a time and place for lots of things, and making fun of bad science in a comedic fashion is a resource and a tool in itself, because that's how you can get through to a lot of adults, understanding how they learn. And a lot of adults learn through comedy. So I have people message me that they learn a lot of things on Oral Audacity because of the comedy that's associated with them. They have a great time. I think it's hilarious. Yeah, yes, call out bad info and use evidence to do so. Absolutely right, Fiona. So yeah, that's what we do on Oral Audacity. We point out the absurd. We make fun of it, but we also educate at the same time. And it's from a place of not wanting people to be harmed, because that's essentially what that show is, to educate people on how to recognize bad science. We do it in extremely funny ways. Doc is hilarious. And I will be visiting him in October. I bought my ticket, guys. So we're going to go to the Netherlands version of the Ark and check that out. So that'll be fun. Maybe we'll have a show. I don't know if we'll have a show on there. Maybe we will. I have to see. I'm so glad you guys love my channel. Thank you, Mrs. Snarky. My voice is calming. I try to be calming. So I will be visiting Doc in October. Yay! So I'll meet him in person, and I'll let you guys know if he's like a real person or a robot, because I think there's probably a theory going around, and maybe, well, a hypothesis. He's like a robot or something. He's like a robot, or he's a hermit.
That'd be a trip.
What?
Disembodied head chases robot on ScientistMel's channel. Miss Karen.
Will Karen come along with me and finally meet Doc? Oh my goodness. So that might be. Karen's still on vacation with her AI boyfriend from Google named Bob. I'm not certain where they are right now. We'll probably have Roswell will probably show up again on Sunday with a new set of conspiracies. So a new set of conspiracies. Is it a real conspiracy or not? I don't know how you guys felt about Roswell. Roswell was pretty fun. The Ark is an actual boat in actual water, and they constantly have to pump out the water so it doesn't sink even in the calm harbor. Oh boy. Can confirm that Doc is a robot. He might be. He might be. He might even be watching this and be like, well, I saw that you were contributing to this idea. I'm a robot. Well, I'll find out in October, and I'll report back. Maybe write an entirely highly scientific sounding paper on the idea that Doc Savage is a robot. Abstract. After visiting the man in the Netherlands, blah, 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 blah. Then here are graphs and data in tables. Characteristics of a robot versus characteristics of a human. Which ones does Doc have? Kind of like do a study, So that might be fun, but it'll be a lot of fun, I think. So yeah, I always have a little bit of an internal struggle, like with Oral DAS, and I'm like, well, and I'm thinking, David Avocado Wolf will not watch this video. He doesn't care what I think, and it's not going to hurt his feelings if I say these things. And he blocked me on Twitter. I'd read that. Fiona, well, I'm going to have a terribly scientific paper. So I'm gonna have to message Doc and be like, hey, Doc, I have to study you. And he'll be like, I'm not certain what you mean by that. And then we'll have to have a completely separate conversation about what I meant by saying, hey, Doc, I'm going to study you. And so I'm going to be like, hold on now. What do you mean by that? ? Yeah, that'd be kind of funny. Oh, goodness. So yeah, I'll shoot Doc a message. Doc, I have to study you and write a scientific paper on you. and he'll be like, he'll probably think it's totally funny. So I don't know. He has a fun sense of humor. So an in-depth study into your robot experience. Is Doc Savage man, mystery, or robot? He's a man of mystery, but he might be a robot too. And then Karen will find out she's really upset if he's not. Resistance is futile. OHM, that is the unit for resistance. Ohm, right? Come on, Bull.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh.
Ohm. That's what the monks say for the monks of the electrician order. That's what they say. Ohm.
That was a dad joke.
That was a dad joke.
Yeah.
Do the Turing test. I'll have to get the Turing test. Maybe. Wouldn't that be funny? So I should get that on video of me giving Doc Savage the Turing test. Oh, I'm making all these plans. And he'll be like, you have made all these plans without me. And then I haven't got his consent on that. So that would be funny. And I'll be like, yeah, I probably, informed consent that he's being studied. I imagine I'll have a lot to answer for tomorrow before we go live on the show, or Audacity. I saw that you said that you were going to study me and give me the Turing test. Well, it's for science, Doc. So it's completely fine. Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. I know we're getting up to almost an hour and a half. Normally we stream about an hour on Saturday. But I just kind of wanted to take some time and address the awfulness. Hello, is it Foyador? The science of kindness put into practice. Oh my goodness. So I wanted to address some yucky things I've been seeing on the internet. Not really directly. I don't want to talk about it because it's not worth talking about. But mostly about before you engage. One thing that you can do. Hey, Nana, I'm sorry you're working. Nana is also a patron. Thank you for being here. I kind of want to, one thing that you can do so you don't contribute to the bad pile, ask yourself, what is your goal? What do you hope to accomplish with that engagement? And kind of just default to kindness. I mean, it's just understand even people who behave the worst on the internet, they have their own things going on. And of course, poor behavior is never okay. I have a whole section of my store just based on poor behavior from people who have said awful things about me. But, I donate, I put stuff on merchandise, I take their bad behavior and I donate the money to charity. So that's how I kind of take something negative and turn it into a positive thing. So the goal of that is to take poor behavior and have something positive come out of it. So what is your goal? So what are your goals? Oh my goodness, Nana. Nana, I feel you there because I'm probably going to have to work until I die. So they'll be like, it's time to retire. I'm like, well, guess I better make live streaming my main income when it comes time to retire. You guys want to see an old redheaded lady sit up here? Hello, Sonnies. Welcome to the Science of. Today we're going to talk about the new transporter unit that they've put into, the McDonald's, to where you can transport to a McDonald's in Italy. How amazing is that? Would you watch that, Bull? Would you watch Old Lady ScientistMel? Like 40 years from now?
40 years? Oh my gosh.
30 years? 30 years from now?
I won't be here 40 years from now. I guarantee that.
20 years from now? Maybe I'll be old in 20 years.
Yeah.
I'll probably be sweary by then because I'll be old and not care.
Right. You won't give a crap what other people think.
I will be old and not care because I'll be technically supposed to be retired. And so old lady ScientistMel sitting in here, maybe I'll be wearing like all kinds of crazy looking clothes and just not care and say all kinds of sweary words associated with science. Oh, God. Old lady ScientistMel is going to go and teach us all the sciencey things. 30 years from now, I'll be sitting here. So today, Sonnies, this is the science of. This isn't coffee. It plugs me up. This is tea. Oh, goodness. So I guess we should wrap this up. There will be more nerdy stuff behind you. There will be. Old lady ScientistMel. F the anti-vaxxers. You know, hopefully we will outlive them. Well, that's awful. That's a terrible thing to say, actually. But it's probably true.
I was going to say it's oddly prophetic.
We've outlived the anti-vaxxers. Go science! Or old lady ScientistMel does exercise. I could get tatted philosophy on there. Be like, here's old people at the gym, guys. This is how you lift. The science and exercise show with tatted philosophy. That'd be funny. We'll be old people in the gym. Going, here we go. Now we're going to do some squats. Oh, there goes my hip. You know.
You could do my water aerobics like my mom.
Water aerobics. Oh,
Yes.
the tatted philosophy and ScientistMel old people water aerobics show.
Da, 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 da. Dee, dee,
No,
dee, dee.
no, it wouldn't even be music like that. It'd probably be stuff like Tool. Like back in my day, we listened to 9 Inch Nails. What? Doing water aerobics to
This
9
paints
Inch
a
Nails.
This paints a picture. A bunch of old people dancing to Closer by
Head
9
like
Inch
a
Nails.
hole. Black is your soul. Oh, there goes my back. I've lost control.
There is no me, there is only you. Or however that song went.
Linkin Park and Jay-Z. If you're feeling like a pimp, brush those water drops off. Come on. Brush those water drops off. Oh my God. Yes. All right. Life goal, tatted philosophy, you and me, old people water aerobics, 20, 30 years from now. Let's go with 30. 30 years from now, that will be a live stream and show. 20 years, 20 years, 25.
In 20, I'll be pushing 70.
You can join us.
I will
With
be
Bull.
I will be an old person producer.
You will be an old person producer. You could be like in the corner spinning the tunes.
In the corner, I'll probably be a disembodied entity in the cloud by then. Whatever.
Oh my gosh. That would be funny. Oh my goodness. All right. So we got a deal, man. We got a deal. Tatted philosophy will be 50. He'll be a child next to us old geezers, Bull. We'll be like, here's the child of the group.
When I was your age, I loaded Windows off a CD-ROM, sonny. Don't you get fresh with me.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. And then just wait until we throw in some 90s rave music.
Put a little Lords of Acid in there too.
Lords of Acid, KMFDM, right? Yeah. And some KLF. We throw it in there. Oh my God. And then we can throw in some hip hop from the 90s. And then we'll be like, here's the hip hop hour. And then poor Tatted Philosophy, like, God, you guys are so old.
Mama said knock you out. I'm gonna knock you
Don't
out.
call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Maybe Frank from the Geek Room will show up from time to time and be like, hey guys, I'm here too. You know, that'd be funny. It's not like Tatted Glam. Play Poison. We could play Poison after a while. Be like really, really old.
Oh, Fiona. Fiona says she's feeling old. She wants David Cassidy and Donny Osmond. Oh my god, I'm dying.
And they call it puppy love. That's when we cool down. We cool down. Yes.
We can put a little George Clinton too.
Oh gosh, yes. Yes. Bow wow wow yippee oh yippee yay, bow wow yippee oh yippee yay. Atomic dog. We could be stomping around. That'll be like doing the squats in the water. Atomic dog. Yep. That's squat music in the water, man. I got you, Fiona. I got you. Play that funky music, white boy. You know, I wonder if they play that right now at water aerobics. I almost want to kind of do some fact-finding things to find out what do old lady people, like 70, 80-year-olds listen to in the swimming pool for water aerobics. I'm curious. I Google, how did I make myself deaf? Oh my goodness. Well, I won't keep y'all much more. So wrapping up, we have exciting shows ahead of us. Tomorrow we have Jeff Holiday on for articulating annoying anti-vaxxers. That's our alliteration for that. Next Sunday, we have Dr. Stephen Hobbs on to talk about cryptozoology. Yay, Copernicus Thinker. Thank you for the $2 through Super Chat. I'm going to donate that. I've got to find another GoFundMe to donate to. So through $2. So what I'll do is I'll collect some stuff. So I didn't get a whole lot of Super Chats here. I'm going to collect some more funds together and donate $100 to another GoFundMe. So once I get another 100 collected together, it may not be for a few weeks or so. I'll donate that to another GoFundMe for somebody struggling within the community. And I have put some links to some of my Twitter, so you can check out Ansgar. I've donated to his. I think there's somebody, Tim Stoic Tim, I think. He's got some moving expenses, so I'm going to try there. My brother from another mother, Darnex71, going to send him some glasses. Going to send him some funds for some new glasses. He's going to be next because he's been running my Facebook page for 2 years and has never asked for money. So I kind of want to help him out now that I'm in a position I can. So yes, so next Sunday, tomorrow, Jeff Holiday. A week from that, we have Dr. Stephen Hobbs. And then on September 22nd, Bill Ludlow will be on to talk about ancient geology and early Earth. And so we'll kind of compare some of the arguments about early, like a young Earth versus, what the science says. So we'll talk a bit about that. So yeah, there's Tim's GoFundMe down there. And then I did post the link to Ansgar's fund on my Twitter. You can check that out there. So I do want to give back. And so the last message, if you can't, if you're sad and you're feeling bad, look for the helpers. You can get hope in finding helpers. And if that's not enough for you, be a helper. Be a helper. Share somebody's GoFundMe. Send a message to somebody and say, hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're doing all right. You see somebody having a hard time, shoot them a message and just say, hey, here, I don't know what's going on, but here's a picture of a bunch of puppies. I hope this helps you feel better. And if you can't be a helper, that's okay. Just don't do any harm. Think about what your goal is before you engage online, and understand that there's a person on the other side of there that has feelings and is going through their own stuff too. Please get back to me on recent emails. I will. I got your message through Peter. I'm sorry. This week has been extremely, extremely long for me. I had 2 days where I worked about 16 hours. I started like around 7 in the morning, and I wasn't, well, it was 14 hours, and I wasn't done till about 9 at night. And then I had like an hour drive. So it's been like, yeah, it's been, I guess, 16-hour days, a couple of them. So I appreciate your patience on that. I will let me go through my emails and I will find them. And I will have a look and get back with you either today or tomorrow. How about that? How about that? All right. Well, let's see. Last little bit. That was South Carolinian. I don't know what that is. Pink Floyd. I have become comfortably numb. Shang-a-lang, Fiona. All right. Bay City Rollers. Yes. SATURDAY. Night. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Pink Floyd is nice. So thank you guys for being here. If you don't eat your meat, you can't have your pudding. We don't need no education. Yes, we kind of do, because that whole sentence is grammatically incorrect. But that's all right. Anyway, I'll kind of end it with Mr. Rogers. You know, guys, just default to kindness. Let's be kind to each other. It's really important. You don't know what a person's going through, what their mental state is like. And just one small random act of kindness goes a really, really long way, and sometimes can actually save a life. You never know. Maybe that kind word convinces a person to kind of come out of the darkness a bit better. You know, it's important to kind of recognize that. So, you know, kindness matters, and maybe just a few sentences is all a person needs to kind of ride through the storm, particularly if they're suffering from depression and are in a dark place. So just keep that in mind, and I will see you guys tomorrow. So you always make each day special for me. You know how? By just your being you. I'll see you guys tomorrow on Oral Audacity. Bye. Sending hugs.